Hi everyone, so Jeremy Corbyn tweeted out Labour's new ad this morning. Let's take a look.
Let's go over the budget.
So the first items on the list are housing benefit, mental health services and charities.
We can't afford things like that. We'll have to cut them.
So next is the police and community services.
I don't think anyone will notice if we cut 20,000 police officers.
Social care for the elderly, Meals on Wheels, home visits.
Cut it. They'll be fine.
The fire department.
Reduce the budget by 30%. Are we done?
Will we still have education, the NHS?
Look, I've got a lunch to get to. Just cut the lot, okay?
Just one more. Taxes on the wealthy and corporations.
Cut them? Obviously.
The more you cut services, the more they fall apart. Obviously. My favourite part of that is when he takes the sandwich off the old bloke and then takes a bite and throws it away. To me, that sums up a Tory. It really epitomises them. I looked at a few newspaper headlines on all these topics that were brought up in that ad. And I've just taken... This is just a selection that I found within 10-15 minutes. From this year. Homelessness surges 34% under Tory government, with 100,000 more families losing their homes compared with 2010. This is The Independent. 120,000 children living in temporary homes as councils illegally place families in unfit accommodation. This is from The Guardian. Ban on housing benefit for 18 to 21-year-olds scrapped. You may remember they scrapped this earlier in the year. It was a terrible idea. Terrible. What if people left home because they were in an abusive household when they were 18? What if they were living in a foster home and they had to leave when they were 18? What if they were kicked out by their parents when they were 18? It's pushing them into homelessness. And they had to scrap this, but not before wasting £5 million on it. That's according to the Mirror. Here's The Guardian again. Number of NHS beds for mental health patients slumps by 30%. Bed shortages in parts of England are so severe that patients are sometimes sent hundreds of miles from home just for a bed. Tories blasted for a $335 million cut in planned spending on mental health. Law and order breaking down. This goes to the police cuts. Law and order breaking down, but there is no link between rising crime rates and fewer police, the Tories claimed back in June when Amber Rudd was Home Secretary. No link between rising crime rates and fewer police. It's ridiculous that they can say these things. You cut police by 20,000, and I've seen figures that say 22,000 police in 8 years, and then there's a massive rise in crime, and I don't understand. Are these two things connected? No, of course not, according to the Tories. That's back in June. But then there was a leaked document. Police cuts likely contributed to rise in violent crime. Leaked report reveals a leaked Home Office documents. So they were caught blatantly saying, no, there's no evidence. And then they had their own report saying, yes, there's lots of evidence to say it likely contributed to a rise in violent crime. This is what the Tories do. They cut everything, blame the poor for everything, and just put their fingers in the ears and yell la 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 and lie their way out of any criticism that they get because of it. Mental Health Trust left with less funding than 2012 due to government cuts, new analysis reveals. So they're not just making more mentally ill people by obviously shrinking the economy. More mentally ill people are going to happen as a result of that. Then they're cutting the funding down to less than 2012 levels, and that's obviously not accounting for the rise in inflation and cost of living since then. Want to know why rough sleeping has risen? Cuts, say The Guardian. Rough sleeper numbers in England rise for a 7th year running. In that advert on the Tories, they said it had doubled. Labour said it had doubled in 8 years. It's more than that, according to these figures. Estimated 4,751 people bedded down outside overnight in 2017, up 15% on the year. But if you accumulate it over the last 8 years, look at that. Statistics also show the continued spread of rough sleeping into areas such as Oxford. I mean, these are well-off areas. Homelessness charities said the figure's up 169% since 2010. That's 2.69 times the amount, not doubled. It's getting on for tripled in 8 years. Almost all cuts to social care in England are in the poorest areas. Well, what a surprise. What a surprise. I found this within a couple of minutes of just finding some headlines from this year. Study finds biggest cuts to care and families, children and the homeless are in the most economically deprived areas. What a surprise. The people who need the help the most are the ones who have seen the funding cut the most. Well, what a surprise that the Tories have done that. And he made the Labour Party said in that there was 20,000 less police officers since 2010. That is correct. And I have seen figures, as I say, that say it's as much as 22,000. But it's not just the police force. Say cut it by 30%. They said there in that advert. Britain's fire servicing crisis as regions struggle after 8 years of Tory cuts. This article was in the Mirror, and look at this. So 22,000, round about that, less police officers. Around 40 stations have been forced to close due to the low staffing levels, and fire engines are being left locked up because there are not enough crew members to man them. And in the past 12 months, there has been a rise in fire-related deaths across the country. What a surprise. You cut numbers of police, crime goes up. Who would have thunk it? You cut numbers of firefighters. Hey, rise in deaths from fire-related incidents goes up. What a surprise. I am absolutely shocked that those things are connected. Since 2010, this article in the Mirror says, nearly 12,000 frontline firefighter jobs have gone. So it's between 20 and 22,000 police and another 12,000 firemen's jobs, or fireperson's jobs as they are now called, I think. You've got firefighters saying, listen, this is going to cost firefighters' lives if you carry on doing this. But again, the Tories put the fingers in the ear, shout, la 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 la, fake news. There she is, Theresa May, laughing. Obviously somebody has told her this headline. Tories prepare to rob NHS of 2.7 billion in spiteful stealth cuts despite claims they're ploughing in cash. I covered this. They made a mistake in calculating the pensions. A mistake that, curiously, they've made before. It's almost like it wasn't a mistake at all. And they won't give them money, 2.7 billion. That's how much they're going to have to cover. I think it was over the next 10 years, if I remember. They're going to have to make the shortfall out of their own funding. They're not going to get that in full extra from the government. Mistake, my arse. Thousands of children face shorter week at school due to Tory cuts as education crisis deepens. They are cutting funding for the teachers and education so much that some schools are having to say, listen, we're going to have to go down to 4.5 days or even 4 days. And then I've covered other stories where there's been schools opening their own food banks in-house to cope with it. And obviously that advert didn't even cover the food bank usage, I don't think. So at least I can't remember to. But the food bank usage is off the scale, especially since universal credit has been rolled out. But all the time, they also cut, to be fair to them, they cut all these things, but they do cut the tax cuts, tax for the rich as well. Oh, wait a minute, no, that's actually bad, isn't it? Tory tax break for Britain's wealthiest cost us £11 billion. This was in the Mirror as well. And obviously, this is from Huffington Post. This was back in June. Tories handed business £110 billion tax giveaway amid austerity-driven cuts. And that was Labour's claim. These are backed up. These are true. That's what the Tories are doing. That is what they're doing. How can anybody vote Tory after seeing those stats? How can they? We've got to get them out. I'm recording this actually while the budget is being announced, while Hammond is announcing his budget and this new ridiculous 50 pence Brexit coin that I've heard floated about this morning. No doubt I'll do a video on that maybe later or tomorrow. But the Tories have got to go. You can see there, just the statistics don't lie. This is what they're doing to the country. They are screwing it into the ground. And if they had not gone very quickly, my fear is this, on top of the Brexit fiasco and leaving the EU, is going to leave us in a situation where it might take us decades to recover. Tories have got to go. We cannot carry on like this. If you like this video and you want to see more, please subscribe and click the bell below so you get a notification of when I drop further videos. Independent voices like mine, I'm sure you're aware by now, are being censored across all social media platforms, so please like and comment on the videos. That really does help the channel out, and share the videos wherever you can to grow the audience. If you can, please support me on Patreon. You can do it for as little as $1 a month. I cannot do this without your help. I rely on your donations. Thanks very much for your support. It really is appreciated. Until next time, peace and take care.